சுட்டு வெள்ளப்படுவ கட்டவிட்டு
Stalin Jr.'s Sanatan remark triggers a massive controversy. From political leaders to religious seers. Tamil Nadu minister faces backlash over his statement. But opposition Team India remains unfazed.
I will not answer.
Karnataka Congress Minister Priyank Khadge backs Udhayanidhi.
Any religion that discriminates between fellow human beings, that does not preach equality, does not preach social justice, is not a religion.
Freedom of expression or hate speech? That's our top focus on 5 Live.
You know, viewer, the great thing about things like hate speech, if there ever is a great thing about a thing like hate speech, is that the hypocrites of the country, the hypocrites of the world, all reveal themselves. The cover over their faces disappears, and you get to know not only who stands where, but just how morally malleable so many of our political class, our media class, and everything in between really are. And that's why I see great benefit in such big stories, and I'm going to be exposing them right here on 5 Live. Thanks as always for being with me. I'm Shiv. These are the headlines. Politics rages over Udhayanidhi Stalin's Sanatana Dharma remark. Priyank Khadge backs Stalin Jr. BJP tears into the Congress party, asks, is this official stand of the Team India bloc? As tensions continue to escalate in Maharashtra, Chief Minister Shinde chairs a high-level meeting, says no one should politicize the issue of quota politics. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath to invite Prime Minister Modi for inauguration of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. Yogi to meet Prime Minister Modi in Delhi tomorrow. The inauguration is set for January. Massive India Today impact on jailhouse luxury scandal. Kapil Vadhavan of the DHFL scam fame shifted to Maharashtra's Nashik jail from Mumbai. India Today exposed the scamsters enjoying all manner of luxuries while in jail. And ISRO releases fresh images of the Vikram lander conducting its landing on the moon, completes its experiments from the current location at Shiv Shakti Point. On September the 22nd, both Pragyan and Vikram will be reawakened. Sanatana Dharma is like dengue and malaria and should be not just opposed, but should be eradicated. The words of Minister in the Tamil Nadu government and the son of the Chief Minister, Udhayanidhi Stalin, in a speech that he gave over the weekend that has become a huge, angry talking point on the political battlefield, a political storm, to the extent that Udhayanidhi himself perhaps didn't anticipate the kind of turbulence that he has triggered. He still is defiant, however. He's been changing the words of his tweets to justify what he said. The BJP has accused him of hate speech, while the Congress and many members of the India Alliance have either been completely mum or are indulging in blatant whataboutery. Only one has come out to unequivocally condemn him. Take a look.
சிலவற்றை நாம் ஒழிக்கத்தான் வேண்டும், எதிர்க்க முடியாது. கொசு, டெங்கு காய்ச்சல், மலேரியா, கொரோனா இதையெல்லாம் நம்ம எதிர்க்க கூடாது, ஒழித்து கட்ட வேண்டும்.
Udhayanidhi Stalin comparing Sanatan or Hindu Dharma to diseases like dengue and malaria and calling for its eradication. Chief Minister Stalin's son and Tamil Nadu minister was speaking at a so-called Sanatan eradication event.
சிலவற்றை நாம் ஒழிக்கத்தான் வேண்டும், எதிர்க்க முடியாது. கொசு, டெங்கு காய்ச்சல், மலேரியா, கொரோனா இதையெல்லாம் வந்து நம்ம எதிர்க்கக்கூடாது, ஒழித்து கட்ட வேண்டும்.
The remarks sparked a massive controversy. BJP accusing Stalin Jr. of hate speech and plotting genocide of Hindus by calling for eradication of Hinduism like Mughals and British.
सनातन धर्म का के ऊपर भी चोट पहुंचाई जा रही है. इन्हीं के गठबंधन के लोगों ने, डीएमके ने चोट पहुंचाई है और इस पर कांग्रेस चुप्पी साध कर बैठी हुई है.
घमंडिया गठबंधन के घमंडियों, तुम और तुम्हारे मित्र रहे ना रहे, सनातन था, सनातन है और सनातन रहेगा.
The Congress, for the record, distanced itself from Udhayanidhi's remarks, but appeared to be actually backing him.
Any religion that discriminates between fellow human beings, that does not preach equality, does not preach social justice, is not a religion.
Sarva Dharma Sambhavana. Sarva Dharma Sambhavana is the Congress ideology. But you have to understand, every political party have their own freedom to tell their views.
स्टालिन ने कहा कि कोरोना की तरह सनातन धर्म को भी खत्म कर देना चाहिए.
वो उनकी व्यक्तिगत राय होगी, हम उससे सहमत नहीं.
But DMK's India allies are apprehensive of political damage from Stalin Jr.'s attack against Hinduism. Amid all the furor and fireworks, Udhayanidhi remained defiant when confronted by India Today.
Your speech has stoked up a huge controversy across the nation. Your comment to it?
I've already posted it in my social media. Please carry it.
Sir,
I have an event to
calling
attend.
for genocide. Just to
When did I call for genocide?
BJP is saying that. So
When did I call for genocide?
It is
Do you have any proof?
No, I don't have proof.
I have an event to attend. I'm sorry.
Sir, one more question.
I will not answer it. I will not answer.
Will the fire lit by Udhayanidhi by targeting Hinduism singe the India alliance? With Pramod Madhav in Chennai and Anaga Keshav in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
I deliberately didn't want to do a debate today. In a while from now, I'm going to give you my opinion and my take on this entire affair. And I know many of you have been reaching out to me, especially on social media, saying, please do a video on this. So at the end of this segment, you're going to hear my opinion. But I didn't want to debate what Udhayanidhi Stalin has said. I would rather just get perspective from some people whose views on this particular topic are respected because they are prominent faces. Joining me live now, Professor Sai Swarupa Iyer. She's a best-selling author, academic. She's also someone who writes very frequently and speaks very frequently on issues of Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, etc. Welcome, Professor. Pranita Subhash is a very well-known actor. She is one who's been known to, wear her identity on her sleeve. It has sometimes got her into trouble as well, I know. But we live in times when things like identity, religion, politics, and the collision of all these three oftentimes make for, a lethal cocktail. Pranita, I'd like to start with you. You've seen what Udhayanidhi Stalin has just said. Yeah, he said,
yes,
Sanatana Dharma should be eradicated like dengue and malaria. Without any additional words, I'd like to know what your view is on those words.
I think it's firstly happening in a state like Tamil Nadu, which is majoritarily Hinduism, is quite shocking. It's a state which has maximum number of temples and protects its tradition and culture with highest regard. And for this to happen in Tamil Nadu is quite shocking. And coming from the Chief Minister's son is absolutely shocking. And what is really funny is the hypocrisy with which he talks about birth privileges of Brahmins, where he is the one enjoying all the birth privileges. And this is what my opinion is. I think it's absolutely condemnable of what he has spoken.
Professor Iyer, there is a hypocrisy involved in the kind of defense that Udhayanidhi Stalin and his supporters are putting up. What is your view on that statement itself? Because it has rankled people all over India and all over the world that Sanatana Dharma needs to be eradicated like malaria and dengue.
Yes, Shiv, it's a very painful statement to hear for anybody who has even a very cursory understanding of the two words, one Sanatana, one Dharma. Right? Dharma itself, if I can quote from the Mahabharata, it says, Dharanat Dharma ityaho, Dharmo Dharayati Prajaha, Yasyat Dharana Samyuktaha, Sa Dharma iti Nishchayaha. What is Dharma? Dharma holds people together, right? It sustains and it holds people together. It removes disparities and it brings people together. Only then, only such a philosophy is called dharma. Sadharma iti nishchayaha. So it's like dharma itself is defined as something which brings people together and which sustains, and sanatana, and is that kind of a dharma which is eternal. So by definition, we are from that kind of a civilization which has been sustaining, sustaining, and it's a cursory observation of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. We can say we have self-reformed ourselves over centuries so many times. This is the only civilization where the feminine is worshipped on an equal pedestal with the divine masculine. Right? And it is I think it's the only civilization which has given a space to even non-believers. The Charvakas get a voice in Sanatana Dharma. Maybe the traditionalists might continue to oppose the Charvakas, but there is always a place to hold the Charvaka views. So it is one civilization which brings science and materialism together with religion. Right? In no other religion where there is science and materialism looked
I
at
understand.
far, like we have.
I understand what you're saying, because it goes to the heart of civilization. And Pranitha, Pranitha, the many excuses have been, put forward both by Udhayanidhi Stalin as well as, his friends and allies in the Congress and elsewhere, saying, oh, he was talking about the caste system. But my issue is here, if he wanted to say something about the caste system, he should have said caste system or Varna or something like that, but he specifically chose the words Sanatan Dharma, knowing full well what it means. And Sanatan Dharma and caste system are not synonyms. Pranitha, I think you're on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, go ahead.
I feel that this was done with an intention to start a controversy, as we all know how the nation is inclining towards Sanatana Dharma and Hinduism. And I think this is an attempt to reverse that maybe. And this sort of reminds me of what Hitler did in Germany back then, where he tried to sort of corner the marginalized communities, the Jews. And that's exactly what's happening here. That's the parallel I draw here, where I think the way that Dravidian secularism is slightly different from the secularism that the rest of India is practicing. And it's quite shocking that the CM's son had to resort to this.
So you would say, Pranitha, that there is no excuse that, someone like an Udhayanidhi Stalin, who is not just the chief minister's son, but also a minister in the government in Tamil Nadu, has sent out the wrong message? Because it is one thing to question. One can, in a democracy where free speech, exists, one can question Sanatan Dharma, one can question religions, one can question the tenets of all religions. But it is when you use words like dengue and malaria and eradicate, that's where the problem comes in, right?
Absolutely. I think this was to hurt the sentiments of the Hindus in Tamil Nadu. And I think knowing that they are a majority there, I'm sure that soon they will realize and they will be able to open their eyes to the reality of what it is and how they are being coaxed, they are being brainwashed into thinking how the words you just said about the derogatory words he used against Sanatana Dharma.
Okay, very, very strong words from you, Pranitha. Professor Iyer, our people, you've given us the historical context and the meanings of these words and what Udhayanidhi Stalin has actually hit at by using those words. I want to ask you, Professor, are people wrong to be offended by what he has said? are people, because, there are many. One conversation is saying, oh, don't overreact. This kind of thing is said very often in politics. Everyone makes such remarks from time to time. If you go back down in history of the DMK, many people have said similar things. So are people wrong to be offended by the words used by Udhayanidhi Stalin, Professor Iyer?
Here again, I'm not a political analyst, Shiv, but what I have been observing since a while is that tolerance has become a one-sided thing, and whenever somebody says something anti-Hindu, there's a lot of preaching about, okay, be tolerant about multiple views, and also in a way they are normalizing hatred towards Hinduism and expecting the Hindus to be tolerant towards it. Whereas anybody, says anything remotely critical about the other religions, they are threatened and, removed out of job, harassed, online, offline. So there is, I think what makes me very sad is that there is a systematic building of hatred against the civilizational roots of India. And that comes at a time where, just last week, we were celebrating the successful Chandrayaan-3 and, celebrating those scientists who were balancing their spiritual, religious, professional sides. And recently we had a Sen-Gol installed at the parliament from the Shaiva Adhinams, and none of the Mathadipatis there are actually the Brahmins, these people love to hate, and that too, even that hate is not, totally is not support worthy. But when we have an ecosystem that is so supportive and harmonious, there are continuous attacks just because, and I don't know, it reeks of they just don't have any good issue to take up, or they don't have the ability
and
to
also,
fight on two issues.
I agree with what you're saying, because there is also a hypocrisy, and that's actually something that Pranita said, and I want to follow up that question with you, Pranita. You started by calling it hypocrisy, and I actually see that very, in a moment from now, I'm going to be, talking about that hypocrisy in greater detail. But Pranita, not only Udhayanidhi's own words, but those who are, trying to defend him, saying, oh no, he was talking about the caste system. Oh no, there is a historical context to what he was saying. It goes down to what Professor Iyer is saying. This kind of thing said about one particular religion has become normalized. And if you say this about other religions, literally God help you.
Very true. And I think that's what makes us Sanatanis the most tolerant religion around. But yeah, as you said, the hypocrisy. So I heard that he said that Brahmins come with birth advantages. And it's quite ironic because that's where I want to call out the hypocrisy, because he being the chief minister's son and getting all the privileges and advantages, and to be in a position to be able to make such a remark itself shows the hypocrisy here.
It definitely shows the hypocrisy. I'll get a final word from the both of you. And I know that, both Pranita and Professor Iyer, neither of you is a politician, but both of you occupy the public space in many ways, and lots of people are admirers of your views and they follow you. In such an atmosphere, we can't, people like us cannot completely disconnect from what is happening around us in the public space. So Professor Iyer, my final question to you now is, we are in election mode. There are many elections coming up. There's a big election next year. When something like this happens, what do you think should happen? Because, should there be an apology? Should there be a retraction? Or should there be endless clarifications? Because ultimately politicians live from one controversy to the other.
So I think, being from my profession, I see 18-year-old students every day, Shiv. So they are all of voting age. So what is the kind of, I would like to ask these politicians, what is the kind of message that you are sending to these kids? They are supposed to coexist with each other, help each other build the nation. If are you against the very future of this country? Right? So hate speech should not be a part of, any kind of an election procedure. Election processes, electoral processes, and even the posturing should focus on issues that are actually that India faces, rather than something that doesn't. Just Imagine the scenario without this statement. There is nothing lost by India. India is gaining in all phases, and you're just passing this statement and creating animosity between the communities and just fueling hatred. There is nothing positive that comes out of such statements. So I think politicians have to. It's time they got responsible about what they speak, and I hope the system also has some processes which will make politicians feel responsible, and that responsibility should be equal. It should not be one-sided.
And sadly, India has a terrible record when it comes to hate speech. Very few people actually get punished. Yes. I don't think any politician has ever paid any kind of legal price for whipping up communal tensions. Pranita, last word to you. Udhayanidhi Stalin is not just the Chief Minister's son. He's literally Minister for Youth and Sport, sports and youth affairs. He's an actor. He's an actor like you. He's someone who is should be appealing to youth and to youthful ideals of equality and things like that. And for him to make a comment of this kind sends out a terrible signal.
Like I said, I think that this has come with an intention. And I think from what I see, most of the secular parties are coming up with statements like this to brainwash or maybe sort of remove that feeling of unity among the Sanatanis. And I think that soon enough, those who practice Hinduism will realize this, and especially Tamil Nadu having majority of them and who celebrate all our traditions and culture with so much pride. I'm so sure that they will realize this soon, and soon enough I don't think any politician will be able to make such statements openly. And like ma'am said, I think that especially Hinduism is the one religion that is much targeted, and God forbid if it happens vice versa, we all know how the reactions are, we all know what the consequences are. So yeah, that is something, and I'm quite disappointed that the Chief Minister's son, and like you said, also being an actor, because being an actor makes you much, much more influential in terms of your thought process. Whatever you say out, it really impacts the public. And I think that someone like him making such a statement was quite disappointing and also hurtful. I think I would take offense that something like this has happened.
I'm very glad that I decided not to do a debate today, but rather, get sober views from thoughtful people like yourselves. Means a lot to me, means a lot to my viewers as well. So I thank you, Professor Sai Swarup Iyer and Pranita Subhash, for your time and for giving us your nuanced views on a sensitive issue. Thank you so much for joining me. Now remember that be it politicians or religious seers, actors, people across the divide, reactions and criticism have been pouring in from all parts of the country against Udhayanidhi Stalin's words. Let's listen into some of those reactions that have been coming in through the day today.
Do you believe that Udhayanidhi Stalin's comments on Sanatana Dharma is nothing but hate speech?
It is absolutely and undeniably hate speech. It fits the bill completely. It just stops short of exhorting people towards communal violence and towards open exhibition of hostility towards people who do believe in Hinduism. I mean, right now in Tamil Nadu, we've got the Tamil Nadu Congress people who are playing surrogate to the DMK alliance. So they are playing surrogate Gurujis, and they are discussing and defining. They're coming up with hilarious and absurd definitions of what Sanatana means and how Sanatana does not mean Hinduism. It is not an umbrella term. They are trying their level best. And the DMK and the DK, very clear, they are equating Sanatanam and Sanataniism to Brahminism, and they have always had a field day in Tamil Nadu by Brahmin bashing, so they think they can get away with it.
Give me your understanding of what you thought on Udhayanidhi Stalin's comments of Sanatana Dharma. He equated Sanatana Dharma to dengue, malaria, which must be eradicated. As we see huge outrage, what's going in the mind of someone like you, who is a Tamilian and who's known Dravidian politics all along?
It's highly mischievous comment and ignorant also. First of all, he don't know what is Sanatana Dharma. and he is telling discrimination. So it is discriminating between the people. So it is discriminating. So we want to abolish it, he is telling. But only one question as a Tamilian, as citizen of Tamil Nadu, I can ask one question. Why they are discriminating the Hindus? For example, his father, who is the chief minister, he doesn't wish the Hindus for Deepavali. He doesn't wish them for Krishna Jayanti. He doesn't wish them for Vinayak Chaturthi. And he don't wish them for any Hindu festival. So what type of discrimination this I am asking? Because he is the chief minister. And he is much ignorant about, because it's a disciplined way of life. They are not practicing this. So he is highly ignorant and he wants to be very mischievous. And how can he abolish it? If he is against, let him tell. But major people, a section of the people following this disciplined dharma, and how can he say, I will abolish it?
There's a new political outfit in town, viewer, and I'm calling it the UBA. Not UPA, but UBA, for Udhayanidhi Bachao Andolan. I'm not here to talk so much about Udhayanidhi's comments. I already have on my show. No one should be surprised or shocked by them, honestly. To say that Sanatana Dharma should be opposed is very much in keeping with DMK politics. In fact, it's an echo of what several leaders have said in the past. And as a matter of debate, I feel it's totally okay to question religion or forms of thought. But it is the set of poisonous words that Udhayanidhi Stalin used that make what he said clearly hate speech. He said that Sanatana Dharma must be eradicated like dengue and malaria. Now, he's busy saying he didn't say genocide anywhere, but what does eradicate dengue or malaria otherwise mean? Leave aside the words for a moment, because what I did want to share parallelly is the breathtaking hypocrisy of an ecosystem that is twisting itself in embarrassing knots instead of calling Udhayanidhi's comments out for what they are, which is hate speech. You have one group of cheerleaders saying, oh, but Udhayanidhi meant the caste system. Well, if he meant the caste system, why didn't he just say caste system or Varna? Because Sanatana Dharma and caste system are not synonyms. The phrase Sanatana Dharma literally has the word dharm in it. So who is Udhayanidhi kidding when he says he didn't mean Hindus? The best part is there's a full squad of beleaguered allied netas like Karti Chidambaram and co, who are clarifying with even greater passion and intensity than poor Udhayanidhi himself. Another neta offered some cursory, ambiguous words like all religions must be respected, while going on a whataboutery journey about Sant Narsinganand's poisonous communal rant. Remember that? Inadvertently equating Udhayanidhi with the latter and confirming what critics are actually saying about Stalin Jr. The Udhav Sena took 48 hours to rustle together a statement condemning Udhayanidhi Stalin, undoubtedly with a great sense of discomfort at having to fire at a new ally within the Team India umbrella. In an atmosphere of religiosity on all fronts, not just from the BJP, the spotlight will be on the Congress as well. Their Madhya Pradesh frontman, Kamal Nath, is in full Hindu Rashtra mode in the poll-bound state in Madhya Pradesh. Shiv Bhakt Rahul Gandhi went out of his way to pronounce his own religious identity and Shiv Bhakti during last year and this year's Bharat Jodo Yatra. They're close allies with the Stalin family in Tamil Nadu, and yet not one single word. Silence is fine. In election mode, it's sometimes smart to hold your horses and hope for such controversies to blow over. But that doesn't mean the deep lines of hypocrisy don't become apparent. When you're selling a mohabbat ki dukaan, you don't get to choose which bits of hate speech are okay and which bits are not. One section in the media is busy shielding Udhayanidhi by saying Sanatana Dharma is basically a North Indian thing, so it doesn't really matter what Udhayanidhi said. Another section says, "Arey, so many big stalwarts have said the same thing, so what's the big deal now?" None of them unequivocally call it out as hate speech. And no matter how many acrobatics Udhayanidhi and his defenders conduct, words like dengue and malaria and eradicate have no two interpretations, and I know you, viewer, agree with me. The thing about hypocrisy is that it makes you look justifiably with anger and outrage on words like termites and phrases like goli maro salon ko. but kindly and armed with nuanced caveats for words like eradicate with dengue and malaria. It is hypocrisy that allows a very vocal section of our political and opinion class to see some things as hate speech and other things as political aggression for social justice. It is hypocrisy that allows one set of speeches to be seen as poison and virus and others to be seen soberly with historical context. Look, let's not pretend to be taken aback by strong words said in speeches. All politicians in all political parties make communally colored speeches, and they must all be called out. The problem is, very much like rapes in this country, we are now in a nation of your hate speech versus my hate speech. And that must never be allowed to take root. Thank you for listening. Very quick break here on 5 Live. On the other side, as India's stature in the world grows manifold with the upcoming G20 summit, a rattled Chinese President Xi Jinping is skipping the event. But I'm going to tell you why it's actually a huge compliment to India.
Once again, India Today wins Best Channel of the Year.
Thank you very much, viewers, for making the India Today group the most awarded TV news network at the ENBA Awards 2023.
We know how to protect Karnataka farmers. If BJP, JDS, they are doing politics. They demanded 25,000 cusics of water. We agreed for 3,000. Now court has given 5,000 cusics. The matter is in the court. Again we are appealing before the authorities. That has to be reduced because there is no rain. BJP also knows the problem. When BJP was in power, when Janata Dal was in power, at this time of distress, what they do, what they did, I don't want to do politics.
Unwavering determination and a dream to represent India. Hailing from Kashmir's Kulgam district, 10-year-old specially abled Imad Nazir's love for cricket keeps him going. Imad draws his inspiration from Mahendra Singh Dhoni, but his own journey is an inspiration for many.
जब से मैंने क्रिकेट खेला है तब से मुझको महेंद्र सिंह धोनी फेवरेट प्लेयर है। मैं बॉलिंग भी करता हूँ, बैटिंग भी करता हूँ। मुझे डीसी साहब और एसएससी साहब ने मदद की। मैं आगे भी चाहता हूँ ऐसे मदद करें, मैं इंडिया का नाम रोशन करूँ।
Imad lost his mother when he was born. His father has been a constant support for him.
जो आपने ये वीडियो उठाया था वो वायरल हुआ और उसके ज़रिए फिर डीसी साहब या एसएसपी साहब ने वो वीडियो देख के इसकी बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प की।
Imad is chasing his dreams against all odds. Recently, a video of his love for cricket went viral.
तो मैं ऐसा लोग अमिस क्रिकेट शौक कर अमिस गो बचपन पान पे शौक क्रिकेट मे कोरस करन किस पे खुश गस तिथ पे गिंद कोर सपोर्ट अमिस हसा कोर डीसी साहबन ती मदद अमिस हसा कोर एसपी साहबन ती मदद तो बह हसा छु शुक्र गुजार डीसी साहबस एसपी साहबस अमिस गस हमेशा गसुन इथे पटन।
बच्चे के हाथ में बैट आप देख सकते हैं।
PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti spotted the video and shared Imad's story on social media.
इस दुनिया से इनकी मां का इंतकाल हो गया।
Cheers are pouring in for this little cricket enthusiast's dream to represent his country. Bureau Report, India Today.
After announcing the special parliament session, the Narendra Modi government has now constituted a panel to examine the feasibility of One Nation, One Poll. The centre on Saturday constituted a 8-member committee, which will be headed by former President Ramnath Kovind. The primary task of the committee is bringing back simultaneous Lok Sabha and Assembly elections, which were a norm till the year 1967. Union Minister Anurag Thakur has dropped big hints about government plans.
मैं हिस्ट्री स्टडी कर रहा था, ऐसे नहीं कि कुछ ना कुछ बड़ा ही होता है तभी स्पेशल सेशन होते हैं। क्या सोच रहे हैं आप?
मोदी जी हैं तो कुछ बड़ा ही होगा। दूसरा, अगर चुनाव एक समय पर होते हैं तो क्या इससे खर्चा नहीं होगा? क्या टैक्स पेयर का पैसा नहीं बचेगा? क्या आपको बार बार इन सब चीजों से हटके देश के विकास के लिए ज्यादा समय नहीं लगा पाएंगे? आखिरकार विपक्ष घबराता किस बात से है? क्यों एक साथ चुनाव कराने से घबराते हैं? आखिरकार अभी चर्चा ही तो शुरू की है। उनके मन में क्या डर है वो आके इस कमेटी में बताएं।
The high-level committee also includes Union Minister Amit Shah, Leader of the Congress in Lok Sabha Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, and Azad Party Chief Ghulam Nabi Azad. However, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary has declined to be a part of the panel. In a letter to Home Minister Amit Shah, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary has called this an effort and eyewash. Opposition parties are accusing the NDA of sabotaging India's democracy and altering the constitution.
जब आप इतने बड़े मुद्दे पर बात कर रहे हैं, वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, इसमें तमाम राजनीतिक दलों के हेड को बुलाना चाहिए था, उनसे मशवरा करना चाहिए था। आपने अपने लोगों की एक कमेटी बना दी और अपनी मर्जी से फैसले कराएंगे। ऐसा नहीं है कि देश के लोग बेवकूफ़ हैं, इस कमेटी का कोई मतलब नहीं।
मैं देख रहा हूं कल से ये बीजेपी वालों ने नया शगुफा छोड़ा है, वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, वन नेशन। अरे हमको क्या मिलेगा वन इलेक्शन की, 10 इलेक्शन की, 12 इलेक्शन? बताओ आम आदमी को कुछ मिलेगा वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन? वन नेशन 100 इलेक्शन, वन नेशन 1000 इलेक्शन, हमको क्या मिला? आम आदमी को कुछ मिला? वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन।
One Nation, One Poll is one of the 3 likely bills that the centre might introduce in the special parliament session slated from 18th to 22nd September. The other 2 bills that are likely to be tabled is the Uniform Civil Code and the Women's Reservation Bill. Bureau Report, India Today.
President Xi Jinping of China will not be attending the India-hosted G20 summit in Delhi that begins in just a few days from now at the end of this week. But that's not the only thing, because China has made it policy, state policy, to be as obstructionist as possible to everything that India stands for or proposes on international forums all around the world. Watch this report by India Today's Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan.
As India gears up to host the G20 Leaders Summit, China sees red over India cementing its position as a growing global superpower. After declining Prime Minister Narendra Modi's invitation to attend the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping is pushing differences with India to a broader platform. Beijing is opposing several of India's G20 proposals, from high-profile issues like the Ukraine crisis and climate change to matters such as mission life, women-led development and MSMEs.
When you host, you should be able to bring some priorities, whether it's the Prime Minister's Life Initiative that looks at the way our behavior affects the environment, or the focus you've had on a digital public infrastructure, and looking at the ways you can empower people even at the lowest economic levels by new technology.
China has even voiced disagreement with India's chosen slogan for its G20 presidency, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This has posed a significant challenge in reaching a consensus within the G20, despite India's efforts to iron out differences. Following India's instrumental role in achieving a consensus at last year's Bali G20 summit, experts suggest that China's current stance could be a calculated move to prevent India from hosting a successful G20 summit. Despite China's opposition, the US has expressed confidence that India will manage to find a middle ground.
We are hopeful that that will be the formula that will be successful. It's on the chair's responsibility to bring that together, but I have a high level of confidence that India's relationships with multiple nations can bring that together, and I hope that other countries will defer to India's leadership.
This discord between India and China has not just affected bilateral relations, but is stalling progress on pressing global challenges, from climate change to economic stability. With Geeta Mohan in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Geeta Mohan and Gaurav Sawant both with me on this. They'll be fronting our coverage of the G20 summit when it comes up at the end of this week. Geeta, to that report that you've just, we've just put out to our viewers on China's pattern of obstructionist practices for practically everything that India is, putting on the international table right now. How is it being received by the Indian diplomatic system? How is it being navigated?
Well, it is very difficult. It is one of the biggest challenges for India, Shiv. The fact that there have been 19 ministerials, 19 outcome documents without consensus so far. And now the final Sherpa meeting is taking place even as we speak in Haryana. So the biggest challenge certainly for India will be to get a consensus document. There are two areas where there is a problem. One is the Russia-Ukraine war, which Russia and China have opposed. But that is a matter of geopolitical issues, which China says, let's not bring geopolitical issues in. Russia, of course, is opposed to the idea because Russia is involved. But it's the other areas that we just reported on that certainly shows China's unwillingness and intent to ensure that this certainly is not a win for India. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, millets, women-led development, these are great ideas. These are just proposals by the Indian side, and China every step of the way, including the climate talks that took place where maybe China was more opposed to the Western idea of zero carbon emission, but has put obstacles every step of the way for India. So the biggest challenge will be a consensus document.
Okay, a consensus document is a challenge. Gaurav, how is the Indian government pushing back on this? Because India has the responsibility now of hosting the G20. It's a reality that Xi Jinping will not be attending. What's the view within the government about how to push back?
So Shiv, this is about G20 and this is about India being the voice of the global south or the developing world. This isn't about Xi Jinping. This isn't about, it's like, remember in our childhood, if some boy wasn't getting it his way, he would say, "Main nahi khel raha, I'm not playing," and he would leave the field. That's exactly what Xi Jinping is doing right now. He can't have it his way, so he says, "I won't play." And India knows that, the world knows that. And India's emergence is something that China cannot stall. China may try, but China will not succeed. And we've seen this. We've seen this post-COVID. We've seen that the world is very wary of a bully like China. The world is very wary and and that is why global supply chains increasingly are trying to shift out of China, or at least going on China +1. Initially, India is one of those grounds. Asia, other ASEAN countries again emerging as that ground that everyone wants. Nobody wants to deal with a bully. India is seen as a friend. It is India that wants the African Union to be a part of the G20. India wants to take Africa along. India wants to take developing countries along, and we've seen that in vaccine Maitri. China, on the other hand, wants to bully countries into submission, and there is an intense pushback from all countries, and increasingly democracies of the world are uniting, and an expansionist country like China, and Xi Jinping realizes that there will be a pushback of democracies, and that is why he's choosing to skip this, and it shows him in very poor light.
Very, very poor light, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next minute. Thanks very much, Gaurav and Geeta, for putting that into context for us. Chinese President Xi Jinping's decision to skip the G20 summit in Delhi is perhaps the biggest compliment to India, viewer, in my personal opinion, and perhaps the biggest ever affirmation of India's rise. Now, this is not an emotional or patriotic or chest-thumping statement, so let me explain why I'm saying it with some facts and figures. For starters, the G20 summit is something that boosts India's stature, not exactly President Xi's cup of tea. But obviously, it's more complicated than just that. China has actually begun to disagree and diverge, as you saw, with India on practically everything under the sun on international forums, from geopolitics to climate change to women's empowerment issues to small and medium enterprises. The list of things that China specifically disagrees with or obstructs India on is growing ever longer with each passing week, literally. Think about that for just a moment. Would China spend so much of its diplomatic energy if its view of India hasn't dramatically changed in the last decade or more? China and India enjoy a major trade relationship and are economic partners across industries. But China's clear annoyance and irritation with a more organized and investable India is becoming difficult for Beijing to hide any longer. The post-COVID world affords a new look at the international order, and India's insistence on a new hierarchy and rules of engagement upset the world order of the old times, and China is feeling the heat. China's support of the Ukraine war, as opposed to India's balanced, pragmatic and independent approach, has thrown into deep contrast the hard questions China would face if its president attended, for instance, a G20 summit in Delhi. Comparing India and China is a tricky business. Let's be very clear, let's be factual. India has many miles to go before it becomes the kind of manufacturing economic powerhouse that China currently is. But the seeds have been sown for an India that will in time be on par and then bigger than China. China's opposition to Indian proposals is understandable because when it comes to high-tech manufacturing, aerospace or automobiles, China's loss is slowly and incrementally becoming India's gain. There are so many examples of it. The World Economic Forum's 2023 report put out in May this year prophesies that the shift in global supply chains from an increasingly volatile and unreliable China that's embroiled with Taiwan, the Ukraine war, will directly move to India and fuel the economic growth story here in India. Diplomacy and strategic relations are complex and layered. There's no real room for emotion in them. All that matters is power and self-interest. But China, in my view, has been letting its emotions and insecurity show. Despite the long road that India must travel to match China on an entire plethora of economic and other indices, Beijing is clearly on guard. And it is this that is perhaps the most historic subliminal affirmation of China's vulnerability. So entrenched is this new China's view of India that it is unable to resist even opposing India's chosen slogan for the G20 presidency, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the world is one family. What possible problem could China have with a slogan like that? That the Indian military has stood firm in eastern Ladakh, matched the Chinese move for move on that frontier, and even pushed the standoff into their claimed territory, has seasoned this era of Beijing's awakening to a new India. And therefore, President Xi Jinping's decision to skip the G20 in Delhi later this week is therefore only the icing on a cake of strategic annoyance that has been in the oven for a while now. India and China are neighbors. They must compete, but they must also find a way to de-escalate from the military standoff in eastern Ladakh immediately. There's much to be achieved for the global south. China has much to gain from peace with India, much more to gain than without. Thank you for listening. Well, that's it on 5 Live. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you at the same time tomorrow. Up next, 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita. Stalin Jr. is defiant on his Sanatana Dharma attacks. Big updates and big news breaks coming up next.
उदयनिधि स्टालिन, वह उदयनिधि स्टालिन सनातन धर्म को समाप्त करने का उद्घोष करता है और कहता है कि हम सनातन धर्म को समाप्त कर देंगे, एबॉलिश कर देंगे, इस तरह की भाषा इस्तेमाल करता है। यह है परिवारवादी घमंडिया गठबंधन का घमंड और वो इस तरीके की बेतुकी बातें कहने में कोई गुरेज नहीं करते, कोई गुरेज नहीं करते।
सनातन को कुचलने की हसरत वाले कितने ही खाक हो गए, हिंदुओं को मिटाने के ख्वाब पाले कितने ही राख हो गए। सुनो घमंडिया गठबंधन के घमंडियों, तुम और तुम्हारे मित्र रहे ना रहे, सनातन था, सनातन है और सनातन रहेगा।
वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन कैसे ये उसूली एतबार से पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी के हिसाब से बहरहाल ये सही नहीं है। इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जमहूरियत को ख़त्म करना चाहते हैं। ये लाकर और इस मसले को छेड़कर तो ये जमहूरियत की जड़ों को खोखला करना चाहते हैं और हिंदुस्तान से जमहूरियत खत्म करके ये डिक्टेटरशिप लाना चाहते हैं। ये इन्होंने नया नारा सिर्फ इसलिए लगाया है चूंकि इन्हें अपनी हार दिखाई दे रही है।
Unwavering determination and a dream to represent India. Hailing from Kashmir's Kulgam district, 10-year-old specially abled Imad Nazir's love for cricket keeps him going. Imad draws his inspiration from Mahendra Singh Dhoni, but his own journey is an inspiration for many.
जब से मैंने क्रिकेट खेला है तब से मुझको महेंद्र सिंह धोनी फेवरेट प्लेयर है। मैं बॉलिंग भी करता हूँ, बैटिंग भी करता हूँ। मुझे डीसी साहब और एसएससी साहब ने मदद की। मैं आगे भी चाहता हूँ ऐसे मदद करे, मैं इंडिया का नाम रोशन करूँ।
Imad lost his mother when he was born. His father has been a constant support for him.
जो आपने ये वीडियो उठाया था वो वायरल हुआ और उसके ज़रिए फिर डीसी साहब या एसएसपी साहब ने वो वीडियो देख के इसकी बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्प की।
Imad is chasing his dreams against all odds. Recently, a video of his love for cricket went viral.
तो मैं ऐसा लोग अमिस क्रिकेट शौक कर अमिस गो बचपन पान पे शौक क्रिकेट मे कोरस करन किस पे खोज गस तिथ पे गिंद कोरस सपोर्ट अमिस हसा कोर डीसी साहबन ती मदद अमिस हसा कोर एसपी साहबन ती मदद तो बह हसा छु शुक्रगुजार डीसी साहबस एसपी साहबस अमिस गस हमेशा गसुन इसे पठन।
बच्चे के हाथ में बैट आप देख सकते हैं।
PDP chief Mehbooba Mufti spotted the video and shared Imad's story on social media.
इस दुनिया से इनकी मां का इंतकाल हो गया।
Cheers are pouring in for this little cricket enthusiast dream to represent his country. Bureau Report, India Today.
स्टालिन, वह उदयनिधि स्टालिन सनातन धर्म को समाप्त करने का उद्घोष करता है और कहता है कि हम सनातन धर्म को समाप्त कर देंगे, एबॉलिश कर देंगे, इस तरह की भाषा इस्तेमाल करता है। यह है परिवारवादी घमंडिया गठबंधन का घमंड, और वो इस तरीके की बेतुकी बातें कहने में कोई गुरेज नहीं करते, कोई गुरेज नहीं करते।
सनातन को कुचलने की हसरत वाले कितने ही खाक हो गए, हिंदुओं को मिटाने के ख्वाब पाले कितने ही राख हो गए। सुनो घमंडिया गठबंधन के घमंडियों, तुम और तुम्हारे मित्र रहे ना रहे, सनातन था, सनातन है और सनातन रहेगा।
Fundamentally, we all are different from each other, and I think we just need to keep reminding ourselves that we are all so different, and that is what's so beautiful.
Fashion label Human recently dropped a hard-hitting campaign on inclusivity led by Pranav Kirti. The fashion-forward label celebrated 8 billion humans and how they're all very different than each other.
This is just another step towards all the things that we've done in the last 10 years journey, which is to bring people's attention to that diverse fabric of our society. Your choices are so different from mine. Whether they are right or wrong is beyond my, it might just be beyond my understanding. But to accept that is I think humanly possible, which is what we try to showcase.
The capsule collection caught our attention as it honors the strength of an individual within a collective. It celebrated varied tastes and brought to the fore the notion of likening 8 billion humans on Earth to 8 billion distinct and unique flavors. Inclusivity